Hello guys, thanks for joining me today. Today we will talk about a Spring Boot. This is the first video where we will talk about a Spring Boot and obviously the first video we will discuss about what is a Spring Boot and why exactly we need a Spring Boot and when we need a Spring Boot and how we can use a Spring Boot. So obviously we will go through practical in order to understand how to use a Spring Boot. But before that, we have to understand what is a Spring Boot and where exactly we need to use a Spring Boot. So guys, uh, if you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel so that you can get subsequent updated videos. Also, like, share, and comment on video. So let's start. So first thing, what we need to know in a Springboot is what is a Springboot? So according to a Spring website, what it tells is a Springboot makes it easy to create a standalone production grade Spring-based application that you can just run. So basically, if you are aware of a Spring framework, then in a Spring framework, what we are doing is a Spring framework is something like where you will get best design uh, like they follow some best design and they have developed a framework called a Spring framework where you can do whole lot of web development and other core development of the application using the Spring framework. However, in a Spring framework, always there is a challenge of dependency. Like when you will go for creation of any Spring framework, then you might have seen there is a lot of issues with the versioning of those dependencies. One thing. The second thing is a lot of configuration you have to do. Like if you want to do something in XML configuration, then whole lot of stuff needs to be done in XML. Or if you want to do something in Java configuration, then also whole lot of thing you have to do. So to resolve all this sort of, headache, basically this is add-on activity that a developer needs to do in order to develop their application. So what Spring Boot developers are saying, keep your concentration on the logical view of your application, what your application needs to provide. Just focus on that. We will take care of other thing like dependency, we will take care of other configuration. So, like they have made this a Spring framework development project extremely easy. It is like, like within 2 minutes, you can you will be all ready and set to execute and deploy your Spring application by using a Spring Boot. So basically, if you have good understanding of a Spring framework, then for you guys, a Spring Boot something like like a piece of cake. If you are not well aware of a Spring framework, no worry. Once you go through the video, you will be very convenient to start any Spring Boot application. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So for any Spring Boot project, two things are prerequisite. One is dependency and build tool and a starter dependency. So a Spring Boot uh, to understand and to develop your Spring-based application using a Spring Boot, you have to be well aware of any of the dependency tool, Maven or Gradle, because it supports two dependency tool. So Maven or Gradle, you have to be well aware of because if you have good understanding of these dependency tool, then you are going to understand Spring Boot in a better way. So what I'm doing is, anyway, I will focus on most of the important point of Maven or Gradle, whatever required to develop a Spring Boot application. So no worry. And then another dependency is a starter dependency. So basically, what a Spring developer has done, basically a list of a starter is there in a Spring Boot. And let's say you wanted to develop a Spring Core application, then like you need some of the basic dependency by uh, anyhow you need some of the basic dependency like a Spring Core unit, a Spring context unit, all those dependency anyhow you need. So what they have done is they have clubbed together those dependency and made one a starter dependency. So basically, there are 30 plus starter dependency, and each starter dependency will have a group of other dependencies. So, for example, if you wanted to if you wanted to develop a web application, web Spring based application, you just need to use uh, web starter web of Spring Boot. Okay, so anyhow, we will go through all those practical later on, but right now try to understand. So there are two main prerequisite for your Spring Boot based application. One is dependency tool, and you have to be have understanding of a starter dependency, which anyway we are going through very soon. There will be a single starting point of a Spring Boot application, and thus that must be annotated with at the rate Spring Boot application. Actually, this dependency at the rate Spring Boot application is combination of at enable auto configuration, at configuration, and at component scan. So these are the three dependency which are clubbed together and is available by a single annotation, that is a Spring Boot application. So if you wanted to understand more about this annotation, you can just go to this link and you will find all about these things. So what I'll do is I'll anyway load this. I'll give you a link to get access of this PPT so that you can go through all this whenever needed. So from a Spring Boot, there is a annotation called enable auto configuration. What is this annotation will do is it will configure bins which are required for your project like dispatcher servlet, like view resolver. These beans will be created and made available to you based upon a starter. If you have chosen web starter, then obviously dispatcher, servlet, view resolver, all those bin are automatically available. You need not to configure any such thing. So by default, it will be available. So that's the beauty of a Spring Boot. Again, from a Spring Core add configuration. So add configuration, like it is for Java configuration where you can configure the bin for your context or your container. Component scan, you know very well, a scan for bins in packages where a Spring Boot application present and their sub packages. So anyway, we will go through it and you will able to understand it. So now you see there is a class given, a my Spring Boot, and this class is annotated with at the rate Spring Boot application. So this is a place from where a Spring Boot application will start. This will be the starting point of your Spring Boot application. And in this class, since this class is annotated with at the rate Spring Boot application, so this is the starting point. In the same class, there will be a main method, and from that main method, you have to make a call to your class using run method of a Spring application. So if you will see a Spring application dot run, the same class which is annotated with at the rate Spring Boot application is there along with argument. So yeah, this is the starting point of your Spring Boot application. All list of starters can be found here. So there is a link from where you can find all the list of a starter which Spring Boot supports, or you can make use of it. A Spring Boot starter has naming convention of a Spring Boot starter, then whatever ABC, whatever it will come, so accordingly it will come. And it inherits properties from the parent starter. So if you will see there is a parent starter, in parent starter you have to mention the version. So this version will be inherited by all your starter. Okay, so you need not to explicitly define version of your starter. It will be taken directly from the parent. So a Spring Boot starter, which includes a Spring core, logging, and auto configuration, and would be enough to start your standalone using the dependency only. So this dependency, a Spring Boot starter, is more than enough to start your Spring core application. For web application, we just need to have below dependency. So a Spring Boot starter web. This is the starter which you need for web application development. In this starter, a Spring Boot starter, which is the core starter, is already included. So you need not to include it exclusively. In a Spring Boot, everything is present by default, but in case you want to customize or give a special instruction to your app, you can do it by using application.properties. So a Spring Boot will have all default configuration. Everything is available by default. However, if you want to instruct something explicitly to your app, that also can be done by using a application.properties, which will present in the resource directory. I'll tell you how. Below doc has list of parameter which you can use with a Spring Boot. So here in this link, you will find all the list of parameter which you can use in your application.properties. Along with this, whatever given there, you can have your own custom parameter also, and you can access those as well very conveniently. So along with the parameter what are available on this particular URL, you can have your custom parameter also. Now, I want to give you a special instruction, and this is special instruction because this Spring Boot is, when you are going to use a Spring Boot, you have to be aware of dependency tool, and your Spring Boot is going to support two dependency tool, either Gradle or Maven. So I'm going through Maven, so I will talk about Maven. In Maven, make sure to use JDK rather than JRE. Also, add packaging tag. So basically, packaging tag is needed if you want to build your uh, project. If you want to build your project, again, if it is a core project, then you want it into a jar. If it is a web app, sometimes you want in var or jar, whatever it is. So you have to define the packaging, correct? So at the time of compiling the code, it needs JDK. So make sure to use JDK. Also, make sure you have selected alternate JDK JRD. That will create a proper project structure. Make sure to use JDK. It will help in packaging at the time of build, else Maven will throw error. Okay, so this is the special instruction. Now I think we have we gone through a lot of theory part. Let's go to the system and start Spring Boot. Okay, so this is my Eclipse. What we will do is we'll go for create a Maven project. So Maven project. Okay, Spring Boot core and okay. So this is done. Now this is our Spring Boot core application. So now what next? Since this is a Maven project, so there are some prerequisites that we have to do. That is alternate JRE, install JRE, and I told you we have to go with JDK. So what we will do is JDK, and the name also will go for JDK. Okay, so apply and close alternate JRE, and this name will be JDK, JDK 1 point, apply and close. So still it is showing JRE, but we have selected JDK 1.8, apply and close, and we are all set. Okay, so now what are the changes that we have to do in order to make this a Spring Boot application? So obviously we need two dependencies. and those dependencies are, we'll go here and this parent. So parent we need, so parent, done. And then in dependencies tag we have to have all our dependencies. So this will be core starter and we are all set. As soon as we will save, what will happen is in your Maven dependency you have whole lot of Spring Core, Spring Beans, AOP, context, all those dependency will be there. Okay, so what next? Now here what we will do is we'll make a class. So the package name will be com.read and class name will be my my first Spring Boot app. Done. So this is my class and as I told you this will be a starting point of our Spring Boot application. So we will annotate it with a Spring Boot application. Also there will be a main method and from main method we have to make a call to a Spring application dot run method and this run method we are going to use where we will give our class name, we'll give the class and argument done. So container will start as soon as we'll go with this. Actually, this guy is going to return us application context. So what we'll do is go for application context, application context. Okay, so done. So we are now just print that application context. We will go for a Spring Boot application context and done. So now what we have to do is give a right click here, run as Java application. Okay, and you are all set. So I started my first Spring Boot app and this is what Spring Boot. Which version we are using? 2.4.3. Okay, this is as simple as this. This is Spring Boot application, like we are ready to run within 1 minute. Now what we will do is we will change the same application to a web application. So what we will do is, yeah, we can change the same application to the web application or yeah, first change this to web application. So as I already explained you guys in pom.xml, this is Spring Boot starter. All other starter will come after this. So we'll just give web control S and it will get us a whole lot of dependency. So if you will go now into Maven dependency, you will have Spring Web, Spring Web, Spring Beans, Spring Web MVC, everything is there. So we are all set to now if we will run. So no change, just run this same application. What it is going to do is it will have a Tomcat inbuilt and Tomcat will be running by the end of this application execution. So what we will do is we will again go for here and we will run this application as Java application. And here you see. So Spring and Tomcat initialized with port 8080 starting and with root web context, and it already started. Tomcat already started. Okay. Now what we will do is, so you see, it is as easy as this. Okay. So within 2 minutes, we have started our Spring web-based application. Now let's take an example of a Spring web app application where we will go for where we will go for MVC based application. Okay guys, so what next we will do is we will try to develop a MVC application, MVC Spring based application, and we'll see how easy it is when you are going to develop that application using a Spring Boot. So what we need to go for again, it needs to be a Maven application or Gradle application, and as I spoke already, we will go with Maven. So I'll go for Maven project, okay? And then we have to go for archetype selection also. So it will take time to load sometimes. So yeah, now, so Maven hyphen archetype hyphen web app. Okay, so we have to go with this 1.01, then next, and here what will be the name of your application? Something like a Spring Boot web app. So there is already an application with a Spring Boot web app. We will rename it a Spring Boot web application. Okay, done. So it will take some time. It is building. If you will see here, it is building. So it will take some time and yeah, just give some time. Okay, so here is your application. Now, if you will see, you have only resources over here, but you did not get the complete project structure. So what we have to do, as this is also a prerequisite in Maven based application, so what we will do is we will go for edit. By selecting this guy, we will go for edit, and then we will go for alternate JRE. Okay, so right now this JDK 1.8 is here, so I'll go with that, apply and close, and you can see source main Java, source test Java, all those got created now. So we are good. Okay, now come to pom.xml, the next part, and try to say this. So we don't need any dependency like JUnit. Okay, we don't need all this also. Just remove all those. Good. So what else we need? So now if you will go here, we need parent, correct? So we are going with 2.4.3. For a Spring Boot dependency, you can always refer to Maven repository. So what you can go with is Maven repository, okay? Spring boot starter, okay? So here it is. So we are going with, here if you will see, this is dependency, but we are using in parent tag, correct? 2.4.3. So the same, we will copy it from here and paste it here. Done. Parent is done. Now in dependency we need only, so this will be a web application, correct? So we need a starter web. So done. And right now if you will go to, right now there is no Maven dependency, correct? Because there is no dependency. As soon as I will save, there are dependencies. So basically a starter web we have included. So it will import a whole lot of dependency into your workspace, into your project. So what we will go, just save it, and you can see the magic. Here Maven dependency came, and now you have all the prerequisite jar which is required for your web app. Okay, now what next? Okay, what we have to do is we have to create a class. So let's make a package com.read. Class name is my first boot web app. Okay, this will be our starting point. As I said, a starting point, so it needs to be annotated with a Spring Boot application, and inside that you need to have a main method from where you will make a call to a Spring application dot run, and here we have to make a call to which application? My first web app dot class. Okay, and done. So this will be a starting point of our application. So done. Now what next? As we already talked about, we have to have a MVC application. So what we will do is we will create a controller. Okay, class. Okay, so controller. Inside controller package, we will go for my first boot controller. Okay, and from a Spring framework also you must be knowing. You just have to annotate with controller. Done. Okay. Now you need to have a method which will do all this model related stuff and view resolver thing. So what we will do is public string uh, get view. Simple. You can give any name, and here we will go for HTTP servlet request, that is request, and model done. And here you have to go with request mapping and value is equal to, and what we will go for the mapping is something like welcome. Okay, slash welcome. And here what we have to do is uh, so what we are planning to do is there will be a HTML page where you have to give user in a text box submit. That user will come to this controller, and from controller it will get mapped to a view. Okay, so we will create a view, and in that view JSP page we will show that user. So a string and yeah, a string user is equal to the request dot get parameter, and the parameter name is user. So done. Here what we will do is model dot add attribute, string attribute name will be user, and the value will be user, and return hello. Okay, so done. So now what we will do is we will create some of the JSP pages. In source main you will have web app, so go to web app, and here we'll create a HTML. So HTML is there, and that will be something like call call.html. Okay, so just remove all this. Let's make a form. Okay, action is equal to, and we'll go for welcome. That's the controller call we will make, and here we will go for input type text, and name is equal to user. Okay, that is input. Then we'll go for break, and finally we'll have one more input type submit and value submit. So this page is done. So this HTML will make a call to your controller, and here is your controller. This is your controller. A user will be available from the request parameter. And then finally, using view resolver, we have to make a call to hello, actually hello.jsp. So, like you need not to do whole lot of configuration about your dispatcher servlet, view resolver and all. Okay, but somehow you have to define the prefix and suffix, which your view resolver will take care of. Correct? So how you will take care of that? So what you have to do is, like this is a special instruction that you have to give to your application. So how you will give it? You just have to get into here. So a whole lot of thing. I don't need any of these. So what I'll do is I'll just remove all those. So that's okay. In resources, I'll create a properties file. So simply I'll go for file, next, and application dot properties. Okay, finish. So this will be a properties. So what we will go with is a spring dot MVC dot view. Okay, so view dot prefix. Prefix will be slash, and suffix will be dot JSP. So why it is giving error? Sorry, suffix. Okay, we are good. So suffix and prefix is done. Now hello.jsp we need, and also we have to fetch value of this guy user from the model object. So what we will do is we will try to make use of JSTL. So JSTL we have to make use of JSTL we have to make use of, and along with that, to compile your JSP we need Jasper also. So JSTL 1.2 I am using. Again for JSTL you can go to Maven repository and check for JSTL library JSTL. Okay, it will give you all JSTL library related information, whatever you need. So okay, 1.2. So we just need this one, this guy. Okay, and that's what I have used here, 1.2. And Jasper, that is for compiling your JSP. Okay, why it is giving it? Okay, we just have to save and it gone. So you have everything ready now. So what you will do is now here you have to create a JSP file. So we'll go with other and we'll go with JSP file, and file name will be hello.jsp, and what we will do is just go for welcome and the user from my first Spring Boot based MVC app. Okay, done. So this will be our JSP, and okay, so these are the things that we need to do. Okay, now so my okay, this will be the Spring Boot application and component scan. So component scan will automatically annotate it because this Spring Boot application, as you know, will take care of three annotation internally. So those three annotation are enable auto configuration, and component scan. Component scan, it will check for all bin, means what bin is your Spring container has to take care of. Those bins search is going on under this package, that is com.read, as well sub packages. Sub packages means com.read controller abc. Under com.read, whatever packages will come, your Spring container is going to scan all those and create instances for those also. If you have defined add component, add controller, or add service, all those annotation, so it will take care of that. So that's what. So now we are all set to run our application. Let's run our application. So this will be our application, run as Java application. You can run as a Spring Boot also, and we are done. So if you will see here, this Tomcat started on 8080 port with context path. There is no as such context path, so on root. Okay. Now what we have to do is, I'll so we have to go for this guy, call.html. So what we will do is localhost colon 8080, sorry, 8080 call.html. Okay, here we will give, let's say, Alok, and submit. And here you can see welcome Alok from my first Spring Boot based web app. Okay, so like how easy to make any Spring-based MVC. You need not to do any sort of configuration, and the same goes for many other things. Like you have to develop some database related query. Those also you need not to do whole lot of configuration, correct? For dispatcher servlet, you need to do a lot of configuration. For view resolver, you have to do a lot of configuration. So nothing you need to do in a Spring Boot, and that's the beauty of a Spring Boot. Okay, so guys, in this video we covered how to make any core Spring Boot application, web-based Spring application, as well MVC related application, Spring application using a Spring Boot. In our next video, we will talk about REST controller and uh, REST-based Spring application using a Spring Boot. Also, there are a whole lot of things which we need to discuss in a Spring Boot. In this particular video, we talked only how to create any Spring Boot based application using simple Maven project. However, there are other ways, like you can go to the Spring site, initializer site, and from there you just have to select the dependency and you will get your jar created over there. You just have to import that particular project into your workspace and you are all set to start your Spring Boot application. Another is you need to have the latest Eclipse. And in the latest Eclipse, what you need to do is you have to go for Eclipse Marketplace, and from here you have to go for a Spring Toolsuit. So if you will go for a Spring here from the Spring, so you can see a Spring Tool 4. So this only you need in order to make your Eclipse ready to develop a Spring Boot based application. So here you can see a Spring Toolsuit 4 makes it easy to get started, a direct and easy to use integration of Spring Initializer. So when they say Spring Initializer, actually they mean Spring Boot. So Spring Boot is also included in this STS, Spring Toolsuit. So you are all set. So what you need to do is you just have to go to new and go for other and then go for a Spring, and here you can see a Spring Starter project. So now you have to you have to give all this Maven jar or war packaging. Java version is 8, language is Java, and group will be again. So let's go with the sample one and go for next. And here you have to select all the dependencies. So let's go with web. Okay. So when we so Spring Web done. So one is selected and then go for next and then finish. So demo project got created now. Here you can see demo project got created. And what we will do is we will go for, it is taking some time. If you will say import getting a started content. So it is taking some time. Now you are all set, done. So and here by default all this is already there. But one more thing, if you will go to this form.xml, starter test is there, which is for testing. And all those you don't need. So just remove it. Don't make your form.xml bulky. Just remove this guy. You don't need to test. If you want to test, then obviously you need to have it. Okay. So here you can see this parent is there. You are all set now. Okay. So this is another way. The third way is you have to go to the initializer Spring initializer. Okay. So this will be your Maven project. Here, same thing you have to go with Maven, Java, and the stable version you have to select, and again all this. And here you can go for add dependency. So like web, all those things you have to select and go. So this is as simple as this. Okay, guys. So I think we are enough for this video, and I'll look forward to connect you in my next video where we will talk more about a Spring Boot, REST web services, a lot of things like a Spring security, and a lot of stuff using a Spring Boot. Okay, so guys, once again, thanks again for connecting with me. And if you are not already subscribed to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and also hit like, share, and comment on videos. So, thank you. Thank you, guys.